Greetings, nerds. This is SNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont. And with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. Hope you're doing well this Monday evening.
I'm doing all right. It's Monday.
Yeah, it's Monday, but happy second anniversary to Endgame.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind that it's been a year since COVID really hit.
Mm-hmm.
And then also just thinking like 2019, like now I'm used to going through life like last year where it was like, man, a year ago we were doing this, we were watching Endgame, we were watching this movie, we're getting hyped for these movies.
Yeah.
And now there's a year in between that, and yet it still feels like a lot of the announcements, things that are finally being released now, were announced all the way back in 2019.
They are, yeah. They were. I mean, one, obviously the big one we're going to talk about tonight, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, was released, was announced then. But yeah, it thanks to social media, it reminded me today that today was the anniversary. Primarily, there was someone that had created a TikTok of the epic battle at the end of Endgame and everybody emerging from the blip to take on Thanos. And yeah, I mean, just seeing the crowd reactions and stuff. I mean, now we're 2 years removed from the film. The more I do appreciate what Endgame did and what it represented as far as the MCU.
Yeah. I still only watch like half of Endgame, and then I skip the end fights.
Yeah. Granted, I don't think I've watched it from start to finish like that. I mean, usually I'm like you. I just get right to let's just get to the epic conclusion.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I've watched Infinity War countless times from start to finish. But
yeah.
But before we get into the Falcon and Winter Soldier, we do have a few headlines to talk about, including the Oscars, which Will watched.
Yeah.
I tried to keep up with Twitter, but I kind of got a gist of it. I really like how Chloe Zhao won, and for not only best directing but also best picture, and it just makes me more like, WTF, where is our internals?
Yeah. I mean, today would have been the perfect day to drop the trailer. I think we'll get it this week because now they can add the tagline: Academy Award-winning director and best picture, Chloe Zhao.
Yeah. The weird thing talking about the Oscars for me is I want to say this is the first year in probably 2 decades where I have seen maybe one of the Oscar winners. And the one I did see, and I called it, Will, I knew it. I told you when I watched Sound of Metal,
you did,
that the sound editing in that movie is insane.
Yep, you did. You called that one way back whenever you first watched it. You told me, I think you told me about it here and I think just offline as well. And yeah.
And I'm not mad that Riz Ahmed didn't get it. The award, it is interesting who did get Best Picture or Best Actor award.
Yeah.
And despite 3 other performances that, again, I haven't seen all of them, so it's really hard to talk about this because it's kind of like, well, I know who I would have wanted to see win, but I also can't say that the winner was like they were robbed because I don't have anything to compare it to.
Yeah. I think I'm the same way. I mean, I did watch Ma Rainey, and Chadwick's performance in there was amazing. I did not watch The Father, so I can't. I mean, I'm sure Anthony Hopkins did. From everything I've read about the film, and the should wins versus who could win and the will wins. I mean, there were plenty of critics out there that praise Hopkins' performance in that film. But I guess, as we were talking before the show, and for folks, I did watch it real time. I guess the way they structured the show is really what led to the what the F moment with Chadwick not winning Best Actor, because normally the night closes with Best Picture, and with this year's COVID production, they had, they reshuffled things. So Best Picture actually came earlier in the evening, then Best Actress came next, and I missed the lead-in speech for that. So I did miss the Best Actress, and I think I stepped away from the TV for that. But then I came back to it, Best Picture Best Actor, because I was we expected Chadwick to win, right? And so Joaquin Phoenix rolls out of bed, shows up on stage, gives his introduction, they list the nominees, and then when they say Anthony Hopkins, I was like, what the hell? And all of Twitter was the same way, because they had manufactured this moment. So I think it's not, I hate it for Anthony Hopkins, because he's caught in a bad spot. He didn't do anything wrong here. He probably gave probably one of the performances of his lifetime, given that he's given many of those, but he did get recognized for it. But I guess it was, read the room, Oscar voters, I guess, is what kind of, I think, was where the people were coming from, I guess, with the feelings and the way they structured the ceremony. I think really was the thing that really caused all the angst that happened last night. And it was definitely, it was a lot of ways like the La La Land Moonlight moment from a few years ago, but this one was even more different, because not only did they like have that what the F moment, but then they just went fade to black, good night, and didn't even have and apparently I think Olivia Colman was was ready to accept on his behalf or whatever, but it was a very awkward acceptance by Joaquin Phoenix, and they faded to black, and it was just like, okay, it was just a weird close on top of a already unusual year of film and award shows and that kind of stuff too. So it definitely was the water cooler talk of the day for sure.
Yeah, and I think at this point that's just what Oscars try to do. They always try to have a water cooler moment. And it's never for a good thing.
It's not.
it's always a scandal. It's always like what you were describing, and the fact that Anthony Hopkins probably did do a really good job. You want to know why? Because he's a legend. He's exactly. A legend in this film. But we've seen him win. We have seen it. We've seen him in his heyday. And then you know what he did recently? He did a stupid Transformers movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What's that? And so it's kind of like Chadwick has a bunch of films that are all quality level, and this unfortunately was his last shot. Yeah. To get one, and then they didn't give it to him. So I think that it's really hard. Like, the Oscars are not intended to be a popularity contest. I fully understand that, and I don't think that they should be. Right. But then again, you also there is something to say about consistency, and there's something to say about, we've seen some of these legends, like whenever Meryl Streep is gets a nominee, I always roll my eyes. I'm like, we've seen that, okay? Yeah. Give it to someone else. And so Frances McDormand winning twice now.
I think this is her third, I believe.
Well, okay, her third, but she won very recently.
True.
Within the last 3 years. So this is her second one in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So that's pretty outstanding. I mean, now I'm just thinking about how Tom Hanks won back-to-back years.
Right.
And so there's like these trends also where, but we'll see. I don't know if Oscars will quote unquote right the ship next year. They always seem to do something to make everyone angry.
But you're right. I mean, this was Chadwick's last shot, and the thing is, to your point, it's not a popularity contest, but this really was a situation where both the merit and the moment really did sync. Yeah, and they really, and so this was definitely a missed opportunity where merit and moment could have.
I have a question then.
Yeah.
Would you have been as upset if Riz Ahmed or Steve Young had won?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I would be because, yeah, I think so. And let's just stipulate that I was had seen those other films as well.
Right.
Let's
It goes
this
back to that as well, where you're like, well,
Yeah. But I think so. I think so. I mean, I think it was a strong. It seemed, but from all indications, even Gary Oldman, even though some people are like Hank, but given that it didn't get nominated with some of the other award shows, but I think from what I gathered, all the performers and performances were equally uh, worthy of the category,
right.
and let's not even get into the Keith Stanfield and Daniel Kaluuya supporting issue, but
Yeah, I was gonna say, what the heck was up with that?
yeah,
So weird.
yeah, yeah. That apparently I read an interesting article about that. I think Lakeith was up for. I think he just maybe missed the cutoff for best leading, and so I think that's how he ended up in the supporting category.
I don't buy it. I
Yeah.
think I whenever random stuff happens in the supporting category, it always goes back to the studios trying to give the actors like the best shot.
Mm-hmm.
And but then again, I don't understand why in the same movie why you would nominate both of your actors in the same category and not split. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good in a way because it just means that there was a plethora of good performances,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is better than when random people get nominated and you're like, did anybody even watch that?
Watch this film. Yeah, exactly. And also, I mean, history was made. I mean, you had with Chloe. I mean, only the second woman to win Best Director and person of color. So
Yeah.
a woman of color as well. So so to your earlier question, it's not a race thing or anything for me. I mean, or as far as Anthony and Chadwick, I think it's just the bigger. I think the Oscars, the Academy was really trying to manufacture a moment, and it blew up in their face.
Right.
And it back, yeah, and I think that's the thing that got me more as a viewer, especially when I saw how they were going with the way the program was
Yeah.
unfolding last
I
night.
was talking more about the legacy factor and
Yeah,
how the other actors who were nominated, yeah, they're also of color, but they are also young and
yeah,
fairly like this is kind of the start. Like this is they're at that point of their
yeah,
career where things are happening, and
yeah.
then Anthony Hopkins, complete opposite.
Right, right. And poor Glenn Close. I mean, she's she's at some point she'll get hers. I mean, she did get the fun. I guess she won the bit of the night for sure with the whole nod to school days and the but which I thought it was when I watched it real time. I thought it was awesome, but I guess it was also staged. I learned later, but it still worked. It still worked pretty well
Huh.
for an otherwise kind of. I will say it was better than the glorified Zoom calls of some of these other shows that we've seen this year.
I don't think I've watched a single awards show this year.
Yeah, yeah.
I have not. I don't know. I'm acting like my dad did with football this year. It doesn't count. It doesn't count.
That count, yeah.
But I feel like we're spending way too much time on the
Yeah.
Oscars and all their ridiculousness. We do have one other bit of news. Doom Patrol, one of our most beloved shows on here, have added 5 new recurring members to the cast, as the show will intend to introduce the Sisterhood of the Dada and the Dead Boy Detective Agency in season 3. Oh, Doom Patrol.
I love this show. I can't wait. And just, yeah, they're in production now. And I can't wait to see when they give a release date, because it's definitely like, yeah, popcorn to be ready to sit down and watch that show. But yeah, apparently the the sisterhood. Actually, in the comic, it's the brotherhood, but of course, with TV adaptations, they will tweak it some, and
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, so the sisterhood is, and they all stem from Mr. Nobody, uh,
Mm.
from the first season. So yeah, so there's the character Malcolm, who is there's another character called the Fog, who is a charming, seductive, and poetically alleged terrorist, and then Lord Jefferson is a character plays a character called is also known as Frenzy, who actually is who played the actor who is playing that particular character was in another one of our favorites, Cloak and Dagger. He played um, the father of
Oh, okay.
yeah, and so and then there's also a character called Sleepwalk, who's a hard partying, lighthearted, never go to well. And then Sashko, who is the Quiz, who's a germaphobe, who so again, there's a team assembled by Mr. Nobody to create all kinds of mischief for our already mischief-inducing team of the Doom Patrol.
Yeah, anytime we talk about Doom Patrol, I always have to put out there, in case we have new listeners. If you have not watched Doom Patrol, you need to watch Doom Patrol. And you need to hold out until the group therapy episode of season 1. I believe it's episode 5.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Therapy Patrol.
It is. I don't want to say it's rough. I do want to say it doesn't click until that episode, and then suddenly the show is the show.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, oh, I'm so glad I invested in this because this is crazy. So I always have to put out that disclaimer because that is how much I love that episode, and I just think that people need to watch this show. And then it brings a smile to my face, Will. Every time I hear about production news, I get excited. I miss Cliff. I miss my Cliff.
I miss Cliff. I miss Larry. Even depressed, despondent Larry, and then of course, and what they've done with Cyborg in this show too. It's been amazing bringing in the Justice Leaguer to this team of misfits, and really, it's just, again, I can't say enough great things. And you're right, it does. When it first starts, you're kind of like, and then when it hits Therapy Patrol, it just takes it on a whole new level. And season 2 was really, season 2, they didn't have too much of a sophomore slump. It was really strong, and unfortunately, like many things, got cut short by COVID. But it was as enjoyable as the first season, which I know a lot of times you can't say that with a lot of shows. And so definitely go check it out if you haven't. It's on HBO Max. Well worth your time.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the one element that maybe Zack Snyder could have added another 30 minutes to if he had just included Cliff. Yep. So we would have what was the name of that TV show that they were dreaming of? Was it was something in Steel.
Cyborg and Steel.
They did.
Oh gosh.
Stone and Steel.
Yeah. Stone and Steel had the best. Yeah.
If they were part of the MCU, we would have had that TV show.
Yeah, they would.
A holiday edition. Yeah, but no, we're not here to talk about Steel. We're talking about Falcon and Winter Soldier.
That's right. Before we start going down Guardians of the Galaxy, the holiday special.
We'll get there. We will get there. I'm still getting over the fact that Loki isn't until June. Yeah. It's so criminal to me to get us in this mood and of this content and be like, here's WandaVision, here's Falcon and Winter Soldier. You don't get Loki for a month.
Yeah, I know. We had a week in between. Now we gotta wait a whole freaking month.
We just spent last 2020 waiting for things, okay? You need to, like, let's go. It'll be fine. The trailers look beautiful, but again, all right. Falcon and Winter Soldier had their season, hopefully their season finale and not their series finale. Granted, we do know that there will be more Cap and Falcon in the future.
Yep.
Well, at least Cap, Falcon or Winter Soldier, I don't know. And I noticed that I just did a misspoke, but whatever.
Well, we could have Falcon. Danny Ramirez, could take over. Torres could be the next Falcon.
He could be. He could be the next one, and we could have 6 episodes about why he wouldn't want to be.
I think Torres, whenever he got the bag of Sam's old uniform, I think he was like, We'll have the parallel. We'll have to figure out the parallels between how Sam and Torres become, their version of on your left.
Why couldn't they have just had that? Like, why couldn't Bucky have said that once to Sam?
Yeah,
that would have been okay. Anyways, so very cinematic episode. I keep thinking about the opening sequence and how much it just like that I got Dark Knight feels. I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't know why exactly, but I just felt like they really didn't want to waste any time, as most episodes this season, and they wanted to get right into the action, and so they didn't explain why Bucky and Sam were there so quickly, or Sharon.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're all here. But Carly's plan is set in motion to attack the GRC, and that's like the first 5 minutes, and then we actually see the heroes go in and try to save the day, and things happen. But Will, what were your overall thoughts about this episode?
Overall thoughts about the episode is the same. It definitely had a very cinematic feel. I felt that it did what it needed to do. Very straightforward story as far as introducing Sam as our Captain America, which basically has been this whole arc of all 6 episodes, and obviously it left me wanting more. And not in a bad way. It's just, I'm just excited about what they have achieved in these last 6 episodes with these characters and really fleshing out Sam, because prior to this, Sam was, he was a sidekick. He was even more so than Wanda. I mean, we were introduced to him. We know that he works with veterans, and then he basically becomes the B team on the B team of the Avengers. And this series really fleshed him out as a person, and so I really enjoyed that evolution, and really it really made me say that's my Cap. I mean if the goal was to flesh this man out and flesh this character out so that whenever he put on the new costume constructed by the Wakandans to be Captain America, they succeeded in that. And and they could, people quibble about some of the pacing and all that kind of stuff. Whatever. The bottom line, this show had a clear mission and a clear story to tell, and from the gate, it was very clear about what they were going to do, and they carried that out, in my opinion. And so I was very satisfied as a viewer. Not fanboying here. I was just from an entertainment factor, as well as really getting into some more meaty issues as well. So I really enjoyed this. I liked the finale. I thought, it's very hard to nail a season finale or a series finale, whatever it is. But they did a pretty solid job of doing so. I mean, yeah, there were some problems, but overall, I thought they did a good job.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. What I'm noticing with this show, for the last 3 episodes, I keep entering our discussion like 75% of it worked. And it peaked. There was, I think it's episode 3 or 4 where it was just this very impressive when we started getting the Wakanda storyline integrated with everything. That episode was kind of the climax, and then it's not like I think this episode was probably better than last week's episode. Maybe not so much the week before, but it's also not. I'm not saying like it was horrible. I'm definitely not saying that, because to your point, the finale, the strong points of this finale work because it was we knew, like, there was a clear trajectory and things came together for the title characters.
Yes.
So like, let's just think about this. If you're going to execute a storyline, you should make Sam's storyline work, and John Walker will get resolved in a different arc, okay?
Or Sharon will get resolved in a different arc. I mean,
Yeah. Sharon's I almost put Sharon in a different category, because there's John Walker's issue of the whole for them to execute the ending of, I think, their 4th episode with him in the Bloody Shield. I get why people are mad, and I because I thought the same thing. I'm like, wait a second, I have whiplash. He's a good guy. Why is this the ending of his arc? Sharon, everyone was so hyped based on the trailer for Sharon Carter to kick butt and to be a part of this team. She's like the Mephisto of this of this show. She did appear, though, Will.
Yes,
but she also was even more confusing than most Hydra agents are. Like, I don't get it.
That's the thing. So people, that's to me what works so well, because about her as the power broker, and because I went into it like, nah, that's too obvious. They won't do that. They won't do that. That's just too obvious. But they did it. But the motivations were there, and I think as I started our conversation about the show, there are clear things that they wanted to do here. This show wasn't designed to be like WandaVision, where everything gets wrapped up in a self-contained one limited series. I think when we get further into Phase 4, we're going to look back on Falcon and the Winter Soldier as a show that kicked off multiple things in the next phase that were established in this show. So I think, it's like, it's the Netflix of like moment of like wanting everything all now versus taking the long game. And this show, the way I look at the way the series unfolded, and you and I both agree that we wish there had been more episodes, because there was a lot going on. But at the same time, I think I'm trying to look at this series in the sense of the long game, and just like the last 20 some films, it's always been the long game. We should know better than expect everything to get resolved in one movie, or now one TV show with the MCU. They're always building. And so this show was just that same thing as well. They're building to Phase 4, whether it's going to be in the Captain America 4 movie, whether it's going to be in, we'll see, what we'll see. I'm sure they probably they maybe re-edited Black Widow some to fit some of, to maybe make sense for some of the things we've seen in the last 2 shows. The other movies that are forthcoming, it's all going to tie together and to the next Avengers 5 or whatever,
Yeah. No, it's the same thing with WandaVision to an extent, where uh, people are never happy, fully like 100% on board with how these things are ending, because things don't go exactly the way they figured they would have gone.
Mm-hmm.
I do think though that this episode works overall better than the WandaVision finale, because as much as both finales had majority of the time like fighting and resolving these conflicts, I was more engaged in this fight than I was in the other fight.
Yeah, I agree.
And that was just because not only it was refreshing because it was we finally got to see Sam fully as Captain America fighting, and what that looks like and how different that is than Steve Rogers fighting as Captain America. And yes, as normal, I always think about Winter Soldier when I watch this show, because I think about how that movie opens with that opening fight sequence on the boat, and and you were just like, wow, a guy with a frisbee, that's cool all of a sudden. Does a lot of kicking. And then Sam, he takes it to the next level because there's all these flight movements with it, and how he uses the shield and everything.
Yep. I guess the same villain. Yeah. And again, the parallels with, in both cases, it was, Bedrock. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. And. Yeah, I think that, I think that's I feel the same way about the fights in this particular one, because, again, it's, Sam doesn't have super serum, he doesn't have any superpowers, but, you're right, he did integrate his skills and technique and as the Falcon, blending it with the depthness with the shield. I mean, for example, using Red Wing to rescue the GRC members in the helicopter, and pinpoint accuracy, like throwing a shield while it's in motion, the helicopter's in motion, he's in motion, and knocking the guy out of the helicopter and stuff. I mean, those types of moments, so in the action is where it really felt cinematic in scope and scale, with some of the things that pulled off in this finale.
Yeah, definitely. I do want to talk about Bucky for a moment.
Yeah.
Because I had mixed feelings after the finale about Bucky and where his storyline and how his storyline came together. And then I was listening to SNN, and one of the hosts brought up and made this great point that I never thought about before. And then I heard it and I'm like, okay, I get it now. There's a reason why the opening sequence and the title of the show is Falcon and Winter Soldier, and they end it saying Captain America and Winter Soldier. It's because Sam's arc was all about that passing of the mantle and stepping into that role. And Bucky, it was about acceptance that, yeah, in another life, the Winter Soldier was a Hydra agent, but that is not who he is, thanks to Wakanda, anymore. And he has now kind of embraced it in more of a way to redeem that name and what that stands for. And I thought when I heard it explained like that, I was just like, yeah, I can't. Yeah. That's great. Now, why they couldn't have had a couples therapy session, it's the little things that I'm still upset about.
Yeah, we needed to get back to that interrogation room one more time, right?
I mean, yes, we got to see a picnic or a barbecue, them all being.
Yeah, he got invited to the cookout, so yeah, Bucky's good now. Yeah, he got invited to the cookout, so we're all good with Bucky now in the family. But also to that with the cookout, thinking of which, and also to what you're just describing, Bucky's journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked, it was a very, I won't say subtle but it was a very nice way when we first see Bucky at the very beginning of the series, still, we learned that we learned that he's pardoned. He has the book now. He's having to atone for all those, the crimes that he committed as the Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
But each episode we see a chipping away of not only a chipping away, but also an acceptance and of what he did, but also what he learned from it. And thinking back to the interrogation room where Bucky, the counselor, and Sam were together, and that very deep that conversation that they had about, where Bucky's like, if Steve was wrong about you, now what does that mean? What if they're wrong about me? What was it? Right. Yeah, you know what folks know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Where does that leave me? Basically, he's like, and really throughout the series, as he was working through Zemo, or bypassing the basically pissing off the Wakandans, by freeing Zemo, and then we do get that moment where he has a realization of what Sam was going through, and when he had that moment in last week's episode, like, I get it now. I see what you were talking about, Sam. Why it was so hard for you to take up the shield.
Mm-hmm.
But also Bucky is also, and Sam's like, yeah, and so I'm glad you see that. And what you're talking about, Bucky, is not atoning, but avenging. And I think it gave Bucky that last little moment to be like, oh yeah, I see what I need to do as well to really come to peace with what I did, accept what I did, and then close that chapter in my life and move on. And I do now have acceptance, because in the cookout scene, you see that. And I think about the line where, Bucky says, whenever he was using his right hand to fix something, it just comes natural to him, because that's naturally who he is. He's not the Winter Soldier, which is, Winter Soldier is the fight, when he's threatened whatever element, that's when the cybernetic arm comes into play. Mm-hmm. And so, but at the end, you see Bucky playing with Sam's nieces and nephews and family, with the left arm. So he sometimes you don't need exposition to show how someone's come to accept their new station. Him using his arm was the way of a plaything, is a way of showing how Bucky has grown in this series. So sometimes you don't need the exposition. Sometimes it could just be a simple scene. And I think also, like with John Walker too, when Sam was giving the speech, and he just kind of like looks, it was I don't know if the director, but that was just a great moment where or Wyatt Russell, that moment when he kind of looked down and then looked back up at Sam. I thought that moment just spoke such volume. That's why Wyatt Russell's such an excellent actor.
Yeah.
Because it's not when the dialogue is being spoken, but it's those verbal cues and those kind of things. That's when you really know when a series is doing something right. Yeah. And I think those were the things that with Bucky's story, I think about John Walker and that with Sam's speech, those are the moments I think why this show worked for me.
Right. No, I'm glad you brought up John Walker in the end. I like the bit that him and Bucky have. Abe Lincoln is mentioned in that bit. I really like that. Yep. I still don't think Bucky will ever like John. Nope. But I do think this is another reason why we need a third season, because the triangle of Bucky, Sam, and John, those actors need to be on screen more.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, yeah. Okay, we had a trio. We saw them in a few movies, but come on, guys, come on. Yeah. Majority of the time, we're just watching Steve, and then he had his sidekicks. But this episode, these three are so, like, I don't know what is a better. triplet, like
Yeah.
those three, or Sam, Bucky, Zemo.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah, it that's hard. That's a hard call. I don't know.
I mean, we haven't seen John's dancing skills, but I'm
True.
and maybe that's why we should not hate so much how it did seem really quick. They went from John Walker is a horrible person to John Walker's all right.
Well, I don't know. See, here's the thing. I don't know if he's all right. I mean, he's a tool. I mean, he's the U.S. agent, and right, Valentina.
But he doesn't get sent to the raft or anything, is what I'm saying. Like, he's not a character who nothing bad happens to him. He actually, in a way, gets what he wanted because he's now a U.S. agent. Yeah,
well, exactly, and I think that's that's one of the lessons that this show was also trying to share as well. I mean, with the U.S. government in this case, or just governments in general, and and again, I think the Flag Smashers were at least in the eyes of the government, quote unquote. What John did, now granted, to all of us who are like decent people, was clearly murder. I mean, he murdered that guy, but but in the fog of war, what John did was basically eliminating the threat.
Right. It was sanctioned by the government.
Yeah. So if but for it being captured, if it hadn't been captured for all the world to see on social media and broadcast real time, in the when he did it, he would have probably gotten in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's Captain America and he did it right there in front of everyone, they did have to do something, so they removed him the name Captain America, and he got otherwise, he got discharged, but whatnot. But he never got sent to the stockade. He just basically lost Captain America, and they just kind of go hide away somewhere, cool off for a bit before we need you again. And then basically, we need you again is Valentina. She's just like, okay. Val's like, because I don't know where, is she Hydra? Because in the comics she's Madam Hydra, but in the MCU it's very vague about what her role really is here.
Yeah, they're vague about her role, about Sharon Carter's role, who was formerly also known as Agent 13. I believe there's a tie-in because Agent 14, but this is the wonderful thing about the MCU again. This is why people keep coming back for more, is because they do know how to end something and then at the simultaneously say, but wait, there's more.
Yep.
Of course, until June. They like to leave the doors open and give us time to drive ourselves crazy with all of our fan theories, and then be satisfied when we get whatever they're planning. But yeah, they got some things. I mean, we still haven't even seen Black Widow, and don't forget, Black Widow was the original intended kickoff point for this phase. And so I'm very, that thought alone makes me excited for Black Widow than any of the trailers.
Yeah, agreed.
And the one thing though, MCU is starting to walk a very thin line because of all of the theories about, okay, well, Sharon's obviously a Skrull.
No, see, didn't people learn from WandaVision?
Huh?
I said, didn't folks learn from WandaVision? Yeah. Don't go there. Just let the story unfold. Sometimes, because you're setting yourself up to be disappointed, and then whenever what you got yourself so wrapped around in Reddit and your own theories and what else, and all, and it doesn't come into to what you thought it was going to be, and then you're like, oh, it sucked. It didn't do this. No, it's just it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to be. go write your fan fiction if you want to if you want that story told.
I mean, if there has to be a reason to. I mean, a lot of these ideas about, oh, this person is this person is this, but what we're just attaching a name to a character, right?
Right.
We're not understanding why would they have that name? What is the justification? And that's where Feige comes in and says, no, we're doing it this way, and here's why. Here's the motivating factor. Yeah. Something that they could do, they really could make this power broker thing work for Sharon in the sense that she is a nemesis for Sam as Captain America, just because they both have very similar pasts. Yep. And then they ultimately, due to how Civil War turns out, they make different choices.
Mm-hmm.
They could be building there.
They could totally be building there, and especially given that Sam, and it really sets up, when you think about Sam's speech, and he talks about, look, there's a division, people are looking at what I do every single day. I'm a black man, we're, carrying this shield, and everything he does is under scrutiny, right? And what better way to what one way they could question his legitimacy? Maybe it may not be like what happened with John Walker and doing the shield, but in this sense, helping Sharon, he kept his word. She got her name back.
Yep.
And now she has the keys to the kingdom to be able to, whoever she called on the other end of the phone at the end there, the end credit, whoever that is, whether it's Val or, because now obviously Val, she was setting up a team for John Walker.
Yep.
And, maybe Val and Sharon are working together. I mean, there's things in universe that you could build solid theories from without going out there saying she's a Skrull.
Yeah. We don't know. We should just be happy we got content.
Yeah.
We basically just got a 6-hour Captain America movie.
Yeah. It's Captain.
We're gonna get a Captain America 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're gonna get a second season.
Yeah. We're going to get a second season. Maybe down the line, given that, because Captain America 4, the showrunner Malcolm Spellman is going to be writing the film, and of course we don't know who will be directing it, but I'm sure it'll be in the way they get capable talent with this franchise. It'll be
really weird to watch an MCU movie, because I'm gonna constantly be thinking to myself, only this was a TV show.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I've gotten spoiled with the weekly TV show of the MCU. Now it's just when I go watch Black Widow and Shang-Chi later this year, it's gonna and the Eternals. It'll be and Spider-Man. It's gonna be 1 week. I guess we'll have a few weeks leading up to with Loki and into Black Widow and Shang-Chi, and then I guess we'll get Hawkeye at some point, which I was reading. I did see where a possibility that Walker may show up on Hawkeye, for example.
Well, that's, again, the beauty about the MCUs. Some of the theories is not just who these characters are and what their role will be, but also where they'll show up, because so much is integrated, and we just love when those moments happen, because they always happen in the most clever ways.
Yeah.
But it's just going to be it's not going to be to the same extent, but it's like what I keep commenting. It's really hard to watch CW superhero shows right now.
It is hard. It is hard. So hard. Yeah, and especially and then you have all that, and we haven't even talked about Isaiah Bradley and just how beautiful. I you know me, I will freely admit I was I choked out. Both when I watched it the first time, even the second time, it's even more powerful. The way they, I choked. I was like, okay, give me the box Kleenex, because I was a mess. But we had recorded.
And to that point, it's almost like with all of these characters, whether at the end of the name day it's a good name or a bad name, they all have come to terms with who they are in the present. Yeah. And with Isaiah, the idea that, yes, Sam picked up the mantle, totally disregarded his advice.
Yep.
But he also made it right. He made it right for Isaiah. And that recognition in the history and the promise that you will not be forgotten for what you did for this country.
Yeah.
I mean, people, like, you could almost argue, yeah, they may have screwed up a little bit with John Walker, maybe left too much resolve, things happened too quickly, but they nailed Isaiah Bradley.
They did.
So sometimes we can't have a perfect show. So
yeah, they nailed it with Bradley. I mean, just the moments, like whenever when Sam was on TV giving the speech to the senator about the responsibility. And and again, just we're the greatest, we're the greatest country on earth. Don't tell me we can't do this stuff. And then seeing the look of, I mean, Carl Lumbly just kills it. He sells it. There's the look of pride in his face when he sees Sam, talking to the senator. And despite all the things that happened to Isaiah, you can see him like, I was treated badly by this place, but despite it all, Sam represents what this country can be.
Yeah.
And that, again, you don't need exposition sometimes. It's just a look of an actor being able to sell that. And that was that moment of just pride. And I felt that same way too. I was just like, oh yeah, Sam, Sam's right. And yeah, I mean, what was done to Isaiah was criminal. But at the same time, Isaiah can see it. He can make peace. Again, like we were talking about Bucky, he can make peace with things that happened in the past. At least may not like it, and he doesn't need to. I mean, but Sam made it right, and I think that's the cool thing of and I think. Seeing what the MCU is doing moving forward, it's, people are like, oh, it's all woke, da 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 da. I mean, look, if you were reading the comics, I mean, X-Men was like, the woke was like back in the 60s when they were using the X-Men as an allegory for, racism and other things. And this show, it's, I guess, especially with things that happen here in recent times, with Sam's speech and Isaiah's reactions and what their back and forth about the legacy and what it means to be Captain America and all. I mean, I think Sam had his answer, and I think Isaiah recognized that and respects that. And I think at the end of the day, I think that's Isaiah, and Sam makes it right. And in universe and in out of universe, I think the MCU it seems to trying to do the same thing too. Because I remember seeing stumbled across a video of Anthony Mackie talking about the MCU and Marvel Studios, and other than Nate Moore, they really didn't have many people. He was talking about like he was on set. And he was like one of the few people of color on set, and seeing how the MCU now is not only of course you have Chadwick with Black Panther, but now you have who was the first black character in the comic books, but Sam Falcon was the first African American lead character in the comics. And then of course it's only 7 years ago in comic book land that Falcon became Captain America, and and now we have it here on the big screen 7 years later. So
yeah.
So it's an evolution and of heroes and people, who are the heroes in these stories. And I think Anthony was talking about, like, with the MCU, now we have not only, we have a black Captain America, but we have, as far as it, in universe, but then out of universe, you're having more people of color behind the camera with, Chloe Zhao and Malcolm Spellman and others, it's not a performative thing. It's an actual thing. I mean, we're seeing progress.
Yep.
And, so, and that was sort of like what was the arc in the story as well with the show.
Yeah. Yeah. When art imitates life, it just makes everything better.
Yeah, it does.
well, I guess I shouldn't say better, because sometimes
I guess
imitating life can be
it can be a bad thing, but I guess it's actual but there's the performative aspect of things versus actually doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think that's what you're saying there. It's like they're really doing it, especially when you see other things happen, like for example the whole issues that over on the DC front with such Justice League and Ray Fisher and all the issues they're having over there.
Right.
So,
right.
Went out a good tweet.
But before we delve down that path, I think that's it for us tonight. Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
I don't want to go. Yeah, believe you me, I do not want to get to that whole sticky.
No.
Love this series. Can't wait for Captain America 4, and also just the rest of Phase 4 of the MCU. Got some good stuff coming. And you can find me on Twitter at Will M. Polk, WILLMPOLK.
You can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at CNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. But most importantly, rate, subscribe, comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.